I think it's time to get ready. So I want you to do me one favor. Turn to the person next to you and say, it's time to get ready. All right, here we go. It's time to get ready because we're going to have Andy Henriquez, a storytelling expert, speaker, and coach who leaves lasting impacts on his audiences. He's known for his spellbinding style and power-packed content, so we are especially fortunate that he will be spending the next hour and a half or so with us. In fact, I watched some of his work yesterday on YouTube, and it is amazing and inspirational, so I know you're in for a treat. Andy came from modest beginnings, and following the values instilled by his parents, he went on to graduate summa cum laude with an accounting degree and worked for PricewaterhouseCoopers before striking out on his own in 2004. So now I want you to buckle up and get ready as our next speaker comes to the stage, Andy Henriquez.
Get the mic hot. Is the mic hot? Let's get on your feet. Get on your feet. We just wrapped up lunch. Get on your feet. On your feet. Everybody start clapping. Everybody stop clapping. Bring it up. Bring the energy up in the room. Is the mic hot? Yes. Bring the energy up in the room. Yes. Yeah. Bring the energy up. Yes. Yes. You just finished lunch? We're about to turn it up a couple of notches in here. Everybody say with me. Office Depot. Office Depot. Office Depot. Office Depot. That's what I'm talking about. That's excellent. 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 Give somebody a high five right now. Give somebody in your area a high five. Excellent. 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 Well, excellent. Doesn't that just feel good, especially right after lunch? Does that feel good or what? Excellent. 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 Well, listen, we are about to create a shift. We're going to create a shift, and I wanted to make sure we brought the energy up in this room and make sure. But here's what I want to start off by telling you. All of you here have one very important thing in common, and that is out of all of the things that you could have been doing today, and perhaps you'd be back at the office and responding to emails and you're on conference calls and maybe perhaps you're filling out a new grant application or you're talking to a potential donor or you're talking to somebody about a phenomenal program. Out of all of the things that you could have been doing today, you decided to show up. And I tell you something, that is not something to be taken lightly. And the reason why I say that is because most people aren't willing to show up. You see, most people come up with excuses, with reasons to not put themselves in environments like this, where they can come and get the resources, where they can get fresh ideas, where they can be inspired, where they can get best practices, and perhaps where they can learn how to share and tell their story. And I just want to start off by saying this. I am so happy, I am so grateful that I get to spend the rest of this about 1 hour and 45 minutes with some not too ordinary people. As a matter of fact, I'm excited that I get to spend this time with some extraordinary people. And so before I even get into the content, I want you all to give yourselves another wonderful round of applause. Now, here's what's very, very important to me. I want to make sure that this is not a one-way conversation. I'm going to need your participation throughout this presentation. Listen, today is a very, very push kind of day for me. Why? My wife is in the room. She is 9 months pregnant, right? And I told her, I said, honey, if you can just listen, one more speaking engagement, if you could just make it past the Office Depot Foundation. So she said, I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure that the baby comes out after 5 o'clock today, okay? So I'm super excited about that. So that's the first thing that I'm really super, and I'm just getting off a little bug. And so I'm going to need some assistance from you to help me push through this because of the fact that this little bug, I'm still trying to shake it off. And so to get your participation, here's what I want to do. Periodically throughout this presentation, I'm going to check in with you, and I just want to make sure that you're following along. I want to make sure that the things that I'm sharing with you is registering. I want to make sure that what I'm sharing with you actually makes sense. And in order for me to do that, periodically, I'm going to check in with you, and I'm going to say, hey, does this make sense? Yes or yes. Now, you're going to notice I don't give you very many options there. And so the response that I want from you is a very high energy, yes, yes. But because we are at the Office Depot Foundation and because we are at this powerful weekend in Boca, I know that this is an advanced group. And instead of you just saying yes, yes, I want you to go ahead and get your right hand and go ahead and do it like this. Yes, yes. And so I want to test it out just to sort of check out. Now listen, I've done this with rooms that had 50 people. I've done this with rooms that had a couple of hundred people. And I've done this with rooms where there are thousands of people. But something tells me that there's never been a room like this room today. And so I want to test that out to make sure I'm in the right room. So are you with me on that? Yes or yes? Yes, yes. Let's do it again. Are you excited about being here at the weekend in Boca? Yes or yes? Yes, yes. All right, excellent. So I want to make sure that we maintain that level of energy in the room throughout the presentation. And so I understand you've got a lot of things going on through your mind. And so it's very important that I get active participation from all of you. Is that okay? Yes or yes?
Yes, yes.
I love it, I love it, I love it. And so I want to tell you a little bit about my own personal story. You guys got to hear from Andrew, who did a wonderful job. Let's give Andrew a round of applause for the introduction there. All right? And so for those of you who are meeting me for the very first time, you know, my parents came here from the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. And one of the things that they really emphasized in my household growing up was, Andy, you want to go to school, you get a good education, and ultimately you can get a good job. Anybody ever had someone tell them something like that? Yes or yes? Yes. And so I followed the script. I went to school at Florida State University. Yes, any Seminoles in the house? Go Noles, all right? I got my undergraduate degree in accounting. I was a pretty good student. I graduated summa cum laude. I went on and got my master's degree in corporate accounting. And there was a group of students in the master's program. We were insane. We were crazy. We said, in addition to our workload in the master's program, we're going to go ahead and study and sit for the CPA exam. And so I actually studied for the CPA exam while I was getting my master's, took the CPA exam and passed it. And now I land a job at one of the biggest and largest professional service firms in the world, a company by the name of PricewaterhouseCoopers. And so here I am, I followed the script. You see, I'm with this amazing company, and I've done everything that I was told to do. But I get to this place in my life where I realize that my life is starting to follow a basic routine. You see, I'm waking up every day to the sound of an alarm clock. I'm getting out of my bed and jumping into my car and fighting traffic to show up to a job, to show up to a place, in spite of the fact that it was a wonderful company where something inside of me was saying, Andy, there's got to be more than this. Now, I don't know if maybe perhaps you can relate. Maybe you have showed up to a situation, a relationship, or maybe perhaps a set of circumstances or a past employment that you had in the past, and you find yourself just saying, you know what, there's got to be more than this. Am I in the right room? Has anybody else ever felt like that? Yes or yes? And so that's what was going on through my mind. And so a part of me wanted to take a chance on myself. You see, a part of me wanted to figure out what my passion was. A part of me wanted to figure out what my calling was. But every time I'd want to move forward, I was afraid. As a matter of fact, I was lacking something called courage. Ambrose Redmoon said that courage is not the absence of fear, but courage is the judgment that the thing that you want is greater than the fear. It's the judgment that the thing that you want to be able to make significant impact with your nonprofit organization is greater than the fear. It's the judgment that you're no longer going to play it safe and that you're going to step out and get uncomfortable and make some things happen is greater than the fear. It's the judgment that in spite of what's going on in your bank account and the resources that you have, that it is greater than the fear. And so finally, in December of 2004, that became my defining moment. You see, Kevin Costner, in one of his movies, he has a line that I love, and here's what he said. He said, when the defining moment comes, and it will come, either you define the moment or the moment defines you. Either you define the moment and you make the decision within yourself that in spite of the difficulties, in spite of the challenges, In spite of the times when you're feeling as if like, man, I don't understand. I'm working so hard for this cause and I'm trying to raise this money and I'm trying to get people to support me, but it just feels as if nobody's supporting me. At those moments when you're feeling so frustrated, it's that judgment, that moment that you decide that you're going to still define the moment and still keep pushing forward. Still keep talking about your organization. Still keep talking about your cause. Still keep going out there and talking to donors after hearing no and no and no. Listen, you choose to define your moment. And so for me, December of 2004 was my defining moment. That's when I made the decision to leave corporate America. And I started my secondary education. And I started going to a lot of personal development events and seminars and workshops. And I was at this event, and I had never heard anyone say anything like this before. I was at the event, and there was a gentleman standing at the front of the room. And he started talking to me about passion and purpose. And up until that point, all I heard about was going and getting a good job, right? Well-paying with some good benefits. Anybody ever heard that before? Yes or yes? Right? But no one had ever talked to me about passion and purpose. And so this gentleman is standing at the front of the room. And he says, for those of you who don't know what your purpose and your passion is, he said, I want you to imagine for a moment, if you will, that you had all the money that you ever wanted in your bank account. $1 million, $10 million, $20 million, whatever that number is for you. And he said, I want you to also envision that whatever fear that you have, the fear of failure, the fear of rejection, the fear of success even, whatever fears you have, they've been taken away. But you still had to do one thing every day that you can get up and do, and that you love it so much that it doesn't even feel like work. And I heard him say that. I had never heard that before. And I remember I started thinking, and it dawned on me that I wanted to be the guy at the front of the room. I said, I want to be able to speak and share stories that are going to inspire people. I want to encourage people to show up for their lives. I want to be able to make an impact. I want to be able to create a shift. I want people to expand the vision of themselves. I want to show people how they can tell and share their stories and make an impact in other people's lives. And so today I have the luxury, the privilege to be able to go into major corporations, to nonprofit organizations, to go in and present through keynote presentations and also conduct trainings specifically on sharing and telling people exactly how you can use your story to be able to make a greater connection and a greater impact. And I share that with you not to impress you, but to impress upon you that this work that I do is very meaningful and means so much to me. As I know for all of you with the nonprofit organizations that you have, your causes and your purposes mean so much to you. And so my intention for the rest of the time that we spend here today is to get you to understand that you also have a story, a powerful, compelling story. And so what's your responsibility, and I mean this is literally your responsibility is to start telling that story and start sharing that story in a compelling way. Because at the end of the day, here's what I need you to understand, that most of us, we have been hardwired and programmed for stories. You see, we're not programmed for a bunch of stats and statistics, even those have their place and their value, but we love stories. As a matter of fact, cognitive psychologists have actually determined that if you get a bunch of data, a bunch of information, you will actually try to form a story so that you can actually remember the data. And so we learn better, we connect better through stories. Not only that, but understand this, that stories have the ability to help us connect. Here's what I can tell you, and I want you to write this down. The shortest distance between you and your next donor, the shortest distance between you and the next person that you're looking to influence, to maybe perhaps volunteer or support or be an advocate on behalf of your nonprofit organization, the shortest distance between anyone that you're looking to influence is a well-told story. And if you learn how to tap into your personal story, if you can learn how to share your story, you can make a significant impact, a significant change in your industry and in what it is that you do. So are you with me on that, yes or yes?
Yes.
You're still excited about being here at the Weekend in Boca event, yes or yes? All right, all right. And so we're going to start diving in. I want to start sharing with you some information and some ideas to get you to start thinking about your story. And I want you to be thinking about your organization, your cause, as you get out there and you're advocating on behalf of your nonprofit. When you get an opportunity to sit in front of or across a potential donor. And so I do know that some of your funding is going to come through perhaps grants, and that's a little more structured and formal. But I'm talking about belly to belly. I'm talking about when you're looking to communicate through email, when you're looking to communicate through social media, when you're looking to communicate to a small group, a large group, when you have that single opportunity to influence people as to why they should actually connect with you. And so are you with me on that? Yes or yes? Yes. Excellent. So if you look at the back of your program today, the Weekend in Boca, for those of you who have been trying to figure out where do I take notes, if you flip all the way to the back, you'll see a couple pages that actually has notes, and that's where you can start jotting down some of these notes. And so I'm going to be sharing some info with you, and I would love, absolutely love, if you would take the time to write it down. Is that okay? Yes or yes? Yes. Oh, come on. Bring the energy back up. Is that okay? Yes or yes? All right, I love it, I love it. And so here's one of the most important things for you to understand, that when you have an opportunity to get in front of a potential donor, or when you have an opportunity to get in front of somebody that you would like to enroll, that you want them to possibly support, that you want them to volunteer, that you want them to be an actual advocate on behalf of your nonprofit, understand that there are essentially 3 unspoken questions that you need to be able to answer. And if you want to have a competitive advantage, you need to know what these questions are in advance, and you need to be prepared to actually answer them. The first question is, who are you? Who are you? I want you to write that down. Who are you? Everybody say it with me. Who are you? That's the first question. And I need you to understand this. Who you are is not your logo. Who you are is not your website. Who you are is not your mission statement. Who you are is not the description of your various programs. Who you are is ultimately your story. It's the very reason why you decided to go ahead and form your nonprofit organization, for those of you who were there at the inception of your nonprofit organization. Who you are the individuals that you're impacting on a daily basis. And so whether that means that you're making impact in the life of a wounded veteran, whether that means that you're helping a disadvantaged child to be able to get a scholarship and go to school, whether that means that you are going into the inner cities and you're distributing backpacks or you're distributing Christmas toys, whether that means that you're helping the single mother to be able to qualify for her very first home, whether that actually means that you're helping the woman be able to start her business when she hasn't had an opportunity otherwise, or maybe perhaps the banks have been turning her down, that who you are is ultimately the stories that you're formulating every single day, and the story also as to why you actually started your organization. Does that make sense? Yes or yes? Yes, yes or yes? Yes. Second. The second question that you need to be thinking about in advance, the first one being who you are, the other one is, what do you have? What do you have? And so here's where most nonprofits, when I work with many of my nonprofit clients, they're typically very good at being able to say, what do they have? Well, what do I have? I have a great program that's here for veterans. I've got a great program for disabled people. I've got a great program for inner city kids. I've got a great program to help people to go to school and so forth. So they're normally really great at speaking about what it is that they actually have. But here's what the problem is. When you lead with that conversation, you fail to actually connect with people. You see, people don't really care about what it is that you have until they've first gotten past the question of, who are you? And so I have the privilege of doing keynotes all throughout the year, that I do them here in Florida, across the country, and I go into different organizations. And guess one of the things that I always have to do at the beginning of every single keynote? What do you think that I do? I am intentional about sharing my story. Do you understand that? Yes or yes? Yes. Do you remember the first thing I did once I got up here was I did what? I shared my story. Now, why did I do that? Because in order for you to receive the rest of the information that I'm going to share throughout my presentation, you need to get it past your mind as to who you are. And so how many of you ever had someone trying to share information with you or come up and they're trying to pitch you on something and you're still trying to figure out, well, who are you? Has that happened to anybody else? Yes or yes? And so are you interested in anything that they have to say before you establish who they are? Absolutely not. Right? And so that's what happens when you have your nonprofit organization. You're super excited about your program, and you're getting out there and you tell them, you don't understand, we've got this fantastic program. We're helping children to be able to go to college. We're doing college tours. You don't understand, we're doing great things. We're helping disabled veterans be able to get vans so that they can get their mobility back. You don't understand, we're doing excellent, phenomenal things. But they're still asking themselves, well, who are you? And so what we have to learn to do is to be very intentional up front of answering the question of who are you? Does that make sense? Yes or yes? And so the final question I need you to understand, the final question that they're asking is, why should I care? Now, normally in a room of this size, there will be a couple people who know this, and I want you to write this down. But when you get an opportunity to sit across from a donor or someone that you're looking to influence, they're all tuned in to the exact same radio station, and that is WIIFM. Now, I know in a room of this size, somebody knows what that means. What is that?
What's in it for me?
Yes, what's in it for me? That's what they're asking, right? And another way to say that is, why should I care? Why should I care? And so you need to be thinking about that in advance and figuring out how is it that you can actually communicate to them why this particular cause that you have should also be important to them. We understand why it's important to you, but why should they care? Out of all the places that they can actually send out their resources, out of all the places that they can volunteer their time, out of all the different organizations that they can choose to become a part of the board, why should they be a part of your organization? What is it that's so great about your organization? What is it that's going to allow them to be able to make an impact, or most importantly, to maybe get some personal gratification from it? So they're asking these three questions. And one of the best ways that you can answer these three questions is finding ways to actually share and tell stories. Does that make sense? Yes or yes? Yes. Give somebody a high five and say, I'm getting this, I'm getting this. Give them a high five. And so they're I love it. Yes, yes. Right? And so here's why I need you to understand. We can learn lessons from other people who actually go through similar experiences as us and actually get it right. So I want to share with you a company, and I know that this is a nonprofit audience primarily, but sometimes when you're a nonprofit organization, you can learn things from for-profit organizations. You understand that? Yes or yes? And so I want to share with you about this wonderful, wonderful company by the name of Tom Shoes. Raise your hand if you've heard of Tom Shoes. Raise your hands up high. Yes or yes? Heard of Tom Shoes? Excellent. Well, this gentleman that you're seeing right here, he is the founder and the CEO of Tom Shoes. His name is Blake McCloskey. And so Blake actually started off Tom Shoes with some very, very humble beginnings. And so here's how he started off. He put out an ad on Craigslist for 2 non-paid interns, and out of his little apartment, he decided he was going to start a shoe company. And between himself and his 2 non-paid interns, they started picking up the phone, making phone calls, and they started calling up big retail stores and trying to convince them if there's any way that they'll place their very cool, trendy shoes on their actual shelves. And so most of you would probably know that the shoe industry is extremely competitive. Yes or yes? Right? If we were to go into any one of our shoes, right, in any one of our closets, we'd probably see several different shoe brands. Yes or yes? And some of you probably a little more than others. Yes or yes? Right? Right? And so Blake, here is Blake and his team trying to get penetration and trying to actually move into a market that's extremely competitive. And so every time they're making these phone calls, after calling these people one after another, they just keep hearing no, no, no. Now, I know we got a room full of people who are in fundraising and nonprofit. How many of you have heard no, no, no? Anybody ever been there? Yes or yes? Right? And so Blake, at this point, is getting very discouraged, but now he's like, by any means necessary. And so he decides to get on an airplane, and he flies out to New York so he can meet with a couple of the store buyers one-on-one personally. And so he gets out to New York and he goes to meet with several buyers. And after meeting with them one after another, one-on-one, guess what they keep telling him? No, no, no. And now Blake is completely discouraged. And so finally, he decides to head on back home. And so Blake heads over to the airport. And as he's walking through the airport, this would be the scene in the movie where the movie completely slows down. Because this is something very special for Blake. He looks down and someone is actually wearing a pair of Tom's shoes. Now, the reason why he's so super excited, because up until this point, the only person that he's seen who are actually wearing his shoes have been friends and family members, all right? That'd be equivalent to you starting your nonprofit organization and your original contributions have only been from friends and family members. How excited are you when you actually have someone contribute to your organization that you don't know whatsoever? You're excited at that point, yes or yes? Right? So this would be the scene in the movie where it slows down, the beam of light starts shining down on the shoe, right? Everything slows down. And so Blake, he's trying to contain the excitement. And he sees this lady with a pair of shoes and he's trying to be cool. And he walks up to her. He goes, oh, you know, those are some really cool red shoes that you have on. And she goes, oh, well, thank you. And so Blake's thinking that's the end of the conversation. He starts walking. She says, but wait. He says, what? She says, have you ever heard of Tom's shoes? And he's trying to, play cool. And he says, no, I've never heard of it. She said, oh my gosh, the person who started Tom's Shoes is this guy. He was on the show called The Amazing Race. You ever heard that show? He's like, yeah. She said, well, he was on the show, The Amazing Race, and then afterwards he decided to go to Argentina to learn how to play polo. And while he was in Argentina to learn how to play polo, he noticed that many of the polo players, their girlfriends and the people around there were wearing these really cool pair of loafers. And so while he was there, he was inspired to start a shoe company. But on that same trip, he decided to spend the last week actually involved on a missions trip. He went into a village and they noticed that the children had blisters on their feet. He noticed that the children had sores on their feet. And many of them had to walk for miles to be able to go get water. And so he came up with this crazy idea. And so this company, it's so awesome. Every time you buy a pair of shoes, they actually give a pair of shoes away. She said, can you believe that when I bought these shoes, they actually give a pair of shoes away in another country to an unfortunate and a needy child? And he says, wow, that's pretty awesome. And he goes, actually, I'm Blake. And she looks at him, she's like, oh my gosh, you were so much cuter with your long hair, right? And so, he let that roll off, but then Blake gets back into the airplane, and now he's sitting in the airplane, and all of a sudden now, the light bulb goes off. And what he comes to the realization is he has started every one of his conversations starting off with, what does he have? He was starting every conversation talking about the shoe. And so he's calling up all of these buyers. He's calling up these different magazines that he's trying to get them interested in this actual shoe that he has. And he's saying, I've got these cool loafers. They come in all these different cool colors and trends. I've got them in blue. I've got them in red. I even have one that looks like the United States flag. And he says that you don't understand. They're really cool. They're trendy. They're going to be the next big hit. And so the buyers are listening to them and they're thinking, like, you sound like every other person who's trying to promote a shoe. And now he's sitting in the airplane. He says, wait a second. If this one woman has our shoes and she knew our story and she was willing to share our story, and she didn't just share our story, but she shared it with excitement, what would happen if I switched the formula around? Instead of always mentioning the shoe first, what would happen if I decided to start first talking about the story? And so what happened is he picked up the phone and he called a couple of the magazine editors that weren't interested before, and he went ahead and shared the story. He said, hey, my name's Blake. I was on the show called Amazing Race. I had an opportunity to go to Argentina. I saw these real cool, trendy shoes. It came up with a wonderful idea while I was there. I was out on a mission trip. I noticed these kids were walking for miles. And so they're listening to him. They said, wow, what a great story. What an awesome cause. And so a couple of the magazines decided to actually put his story in the magazine. Well, guess what happened? A couple of celebrities were flipping through the magazine. They said, wow, what a great story. Let me go to the website and order those shoes. Well, a couple of the celebrities who are wearing the shoes got caught on camera by paparazzi wearing those cool Tom shoes. And people were saying, well, what are those cool shoes? And so they started to go out and buy the shoes. A woman by the name of Oprah Winfrey saw the shoes and said, hey, let's make it one of my favorite things. You get a shoe, and you get a shoe, right? And so now Oprah is on the list. Next thing you know, he goes from a struggling company to doing over $250 million a year. Today, over $400 million a year. And they have given out over 10 million shoes, all because of the fact of what? They started telling the story. And so today, if you were to leave this event and you were to decide to log on and go ahead and put up Tom's shoes or put in Blake's name, you will see Blake all over the country and even in different countries. And guess what he does on every single stage and in every single interview? What do you think he does? He tells the same story over and over and over and over and over again. And it is very rare that you will ever be able to find somebody who's wearing a pair of Tom's shoes who can't just give you one little snippet of the story, even if it's just the part that every time you buy a pair of shoes, they actually give a pair of shoes away. Does that make sense? Yes or yes? And so here's what happened. Blake cracked the code. And so here's what he realized. He said, wait a second, I figured out how to answer these 3 questions. And so the first question is, who are you? And so Blake's like, listen, I'm just a regular guy. I was on the show called The Amazing Race. I decided to go to Argentina to learn how to play polo. And while I was there, I was inspired because people were wearing these little cool, trendy shoes. Well, what do you have? I got these real cool, trendy shoes. They come in different colors, different sizes, different patterns. And you know what? Now they even make some of them to actually have laces on them. Well, people say, well, why should I care? Well, the reason why you should care is because we're not just a regular shoe company. As a matter of fact, we're a shoe company connected to a cause. Every single time you purchase a pair of shoes, we give a pair of shoes away to somebody who's less fortunate. He answered the 3 questions. Who are you? What do you have? And why should I care? And here's what I need you to understand. That all of you have tremendous causes. You have tremendous organizations. You're out there making amazing impact. And sometimes just the tiniest little tweak can completely change things around for you. One of my nonprofit clients, they invited me back to a board meeting, and it was 2 years to date. And she said, Andy, the reason why we invited you back is because 2 years ago, we took a gamble. And we decided that during our board meeting, instead of having a traditional board meeting, we decided we're just going to open it up and then pass it over to you and allow you to go ahead and train our board members and our executives on how to start sharing the stories of what it is that we do here. And she said, I just want to let you know, it's been 2 years to date. And the reason why we brought you back, when you first came here, we had an annual budget of $2 million. She said, it's been 2 years to date, and now we're at $6.2 million. And she said the primary thing that we did was we started sharing and telling the stories. And now, when you go to our website, we're not just telling you a whole bunch of facts and figures. It's story after story after story. When we have a program, we always find a way to bring some of the people up that are benefiting from what we do and share their story. When we get an opportunity to sit across from a potential big donor, guess what we lead with? An actual story. When somebody says, hey, tell me about that program, instead of giving them the description about the program, guess what we do? We share an actual story. And by sharing the story, we've actually been able to increase our level of engagement. Does that make sense? Yes or yes? Yes. I want you to give somebody a high five and say, tell your story, tell your story. Now here's something else. Here's something else that I share with many of my clients when I'm working with them. Specifically, oh yes, they're getting good footage over there. Everybody, if you got a clapper, do the little clapper. Let's bring it up. Bring it up, 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 bring it up. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Hey, let's feed off of that energy right now. Are you with me, yes or yes? Yes, yes. One more time. Are you with me, yes or yes? Yes, yes. I love it. I love it. And so here's one of the other things that I share with many of my nonprofit clients. And just this little tweak can pay you some serious dividends. And one of the things that I share with them is that all too often as nonprofit organizations, and I know there's some of you in here who are for-profit, and this still applies to you, when you're sitting across from someone that you're looking to influence, perhaps a potential donor, or maybe perhaps this is somebody that you're looking to have them volunteer or become a major supporter, a major advocate on behalf of your organization, I said, here's one of the things that's very important. You got to make this little simple tweak, this simple adjustment. And the simple adjustment is that you have to make sure that you are interested as opposed to just simply trying to be interesting. Now, I want you to write this down. This is worth lots of gold. Here's what I mean by that. Many a times, nonprofit organizations and individuals, when we get an opportunity to speak on behalf of our nonprofit organization, we are oftentimes hoping and seeking to be interesting. And so we meet someone, and right away we see them, we go, oh my gosh, and they say, well, tell me about your organization. So, oh, well, my organization was founded in 1928, and I just want to let you know we have 5 different programs, and these are the different programs that we do. And one of the programs is outreach programs, so we go out into the communities and we talk to people. One of the other things is we help minority youth, and we help them to be able to go out and get actual scholarships. Another one of the programs is we help wounded veterans, and we really help them out to get those things done. And another one of our wonderful programs that we really like, we were really looking to empower women to help them to get into business, so we really empower women to help them get in business by giving them a small business grant and really helping them out. And so we're just really hoping to be really interesting. I know no one in this room has ever done that, right? No one has ever done that in this room, right? Excellent. So I know no one has done that in this room. And so what we're attempting to do is be very interesting. But here's what we don't even think about. What if the person that you're talking to is not really interested in any of the things that you're talking about? What if all the things that you're talking about don't really mean very much to them? And so instead of you wasting your time and ruining that first opportunity for you to actually connect and influence them, what we have to learn to condition ourselves to do is to be interested. Interested. Now, if you wrote interesting and interested down, I want you to underline interested. Underline it several times. Because here's what happens when you are interested, when you're actually interested in what it is that someone has to say, what happens is now you are asking the questions. Now you're trying to figure out what's their story. What is it that's important to you? Tell me about your story. Tell me about some of the things that have been important to you. Tell me what you're passionate about. Tell me about what some of your interests are. Because as you're listening and you're intentionally listening and you're actively listening, what you're getting is intel so that you know what's most important to them. So now you can go through your own personal database to figure out if there's a potential match in something that they're very interested in and something that ties into your actual cause. Does that make sense? Yes or yes? So I'll give you an example. One of my clients said, hey, Andy, listen, we had an opportunity to meet up with a very, very successful businessman. Someone was so very nice and generous to actually introduce this man to our foundation. And now we had an opportunity to meet with him one-on-one, and he said, Andy, we remembered what you said about making sure that we're interested as opposed to just trying to be interesting. And so we spent the first part of our conversation just asking him questions. And what we discovered is in spite of the fact that he was in one particular industry and he's made a significant amount of money in the industry, what we learned is ever since he was a very little boy, he's had this passion for aviation, and he absolutely loves airplanes. And all he does till this day as an adult, he loves watching planes take off and land, and he has little airplane models and so forth. And so because of the fact that we were interested, we discovered that he had a passion for aviation, and it just so happened that we have an aviation program. And so here we were not even going to talk to him about our aviation program, but through active listening and being interested, we discovered that he's passionate about aviation, and we were able to create a match. And now we have something that he's excited about because he wants to come and take a tour of our aviation program. He wants to actually check out some of the airplanes and so forth, and now he's super excited. We don't have to sell him on anything because it's something that he's interested in, and we weren't just simply looking to be interesting. Does that make sense? Yes or yes? And so one of the things that I'm asking you to do is that next time you have an opportunity to go to a networking event, instead of just running around the room and just trying to give everybody your business card, which a lot of times is not very effective, right? And you're shoving your business card to a whole bunch of people and ratting off maybe your mission statement and the description of a couple of your programs. And then what happens is you maybe perhaps grab a couple business cards, you attempt to follow up, and what ends up happening is you go and you're hoping that you're gonna go ahead and get a contribution on your website, or someone's gonna send you an email, and what do you hear? Crickets, right? Has anybody ever been there? Yes or yes, right? And so what happens is oftentimes you will be able to have more impact and get a better return on your investment of your time if instead of just trying to get around to everyone, if all you did was walk around and try to make a few actual, true contacts. And instead of you doing all the talking, you actually be interested and ask people questions and learn about them, find out what's of interest to them, and see if maybe perhaps if there's a way that you can tie it back to your organization. Because what happens is, in the process of having a conversation, what you may discover, like I heard from one of the ladies last night in one of our networking events, that she had 2 of her children actually went off to the military. And so you would have never known, because her profession, she was a professional cyclist, a workout instructor. You would never know that she has an affinity. You would never know that she has a passion for the military if you weren't interested and found out that both of her sons went to the military. So there's a potential connection that goes there. You see, many people who approach me and are talking to me about scholarships and so forth, if they took the time to be interested, they would find out that, you know what, my parents are originally from Haiti. And so I've got a special affinity if they told me that, you know what, some of the scholarships that we give go to first-generation students, many of which are Caribbean, many of which are Haitian descent. Because of the fact that they took the time to be interested, they can then find a way to create the connection. And so if you can just create that little shift and stop trying to just be interesting, but rather be interested, it can pay off serious dividends. Does that make sense? Yes or yes? Yes. Give somebody a high five and say, be interested, be interested. Let's get those clappers, clappers, clappers. Yeah. Awesome. And let's feed right off of that energy. Are you with me? Yes or yes? Yes, yes. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And so here's the other thing. One of the other things I discover when I'm working with many of my nonprofit clients is they say, Andy, listen, you don't understand. I totally get it now. You're right. I've been hearing this conversation. You're not the first person to tell me about the importance of making sure that I'm sharing my story. And they said, but Andy, it's so crazy. We just have so many stories. We have all these different programs and all these different people that we're impacting, we're connecting lives, we're helping people to get back on their feet, we're helping people to go off to college, we're helping veterans, we're helping people to actually get book bags and supplies and so forth during this time of the year. There are so many amazing things that we're doing on a consistent basis, and there's story after story after story. And so, Andy, how do I know which story to share? Anybody ever wondered that question, asked themselves the question, how do I know what story? Raise your hands up high so I can see you. If you've ever asked yourself the question, what story did I share? And so if you are at that place where you're trying to figure out, well, what story do I share? There are 3 questions that you need to consider. And so the first question is, what do I want them to know? Write that down. What do I want them to know? What do I want them to know? And so here's what I mean by what do I want them to know. When you're trying to figure out, you have all these great, amazing stories, and you're trying to figure out which of these stories should I actually share, you need to be thinking about up front where whoever it is that you're sitting across from, and them could be a donor, them could actually be a person that you're looking to help volunteer or be a contributor to your organization. Them could be somebody that you want to talk to about being a potential board member. You need to be thinking in advance, what do I want them to know? So do you want them to know, like I heard from the lady last night, who said 100% of all their contributions and donations go directly to the cause? Then maybe perhaps you share a story that highlights that. If what you want them to know, if you find out that they have a special place in their heart for helping women to get to the next level, then maybe perhaps you share a story about how your cause has actually been able to empower a woman to get to the next level. Does that make sense? Yes or yes? And so if you think about it, you say, man, maybe one of the things that I actually want them to know, one of the things that I want them to know is that the efforts and the things that we're doing is not just something that's happening here in South Florida, but we're also making an impact abroad. We're also making an impact in other places. Then you say, what's a story that I can share that highlights the impact that we're making in other places? Does that make sense? Yes or yes? And so we need to be thinking in advance when we're trying to figure out what story we want to share. We need to be thinking about in advance, what is it that I want them to actually know? Does that make sense? Yes or yes? Perfect. And so the second thing is we need to be thinking to ourselves is, what do I want them to feel? Everybody say it with me. What do I want them to feel? One more time. But I want you to bring it all the way in on 3. What do I want them to feel, right? And so we got to understand this, that stories have the ability to be able to trigger the emotion. And here's what you may or may not realize. 90% of the decisions that we make financially and our buying decisions are happening at a subconscious level. And many of those decisions that we're actually making are tied to an emotion. And that is the reason why many of the major brands, and we can see 2 pairs of shoes sitting right next to each other, and one of them twice the amount of the price as the other one, but because one of them has a little check on the side, we'll go ahead and pick that up. Because that company has spent millions of dollars with associating a feeling to that check mark for you. Does that make sense? Yes or yes? It's the reason why you can go someplace and you see a whole bunch of jeans, and then you see a brand that you're familiar with. And the other pair of jeans look just as good. But there's probably a little $30 difference, and you decide to pay $30 more because you recognize the brand. Why is that? Because you associate a feeling that you're going to get when you actually have those actual jeans on. Does that make sense? Yes or yes? And you know, one of the things I happen to be doing now, I'm doing some car shopping. And so as I'm driving around periodically, and I tell my wife, honey, don't worry, I'm just killing a little bit of time. But I want you to think about this scenario, right, where there's a gentleman, he's in his car, he wants to kill a little time, and he sees this car dealership, and he decides to pull over, and he says, I'm not here to buy, I'm just going to be looking at some cars. And so he gets out on the lot, and he starts looking at the cars. And so what do we know is happening right now? One of the car salesmen spots him from inside, right, with his X-ray vision. He starts coming outside, says, hey, how you doing? Good to see you. Hey, listen, you looking at some cars? Say, hey, I'm not here to buy. I'm just looking. He says, listen, I know you're not here to buy. I know you're just looking, but we don't charge anything to look. As a matter of fact, I noticed you were looking through the window of that particular truck. Hey, if you wait just a second, do you have your driver's license on you? I know it's a stupid question because I saw you drive up. I can go ahead and get the keys to this car. And he goes, okay, I guess so. And so he pulls out his wallet. He hands over the driver's license. The car salesman goes inside. He comes back out, and now he's got that little license plate with the really hefty-duty magnet on the back. He comes on back, slaps that license plate on there, comes to the door, says, come on in, man, good to see you. Come on, man, get in the car. And now the guy's in the car. He says, listen, I don't know what your favorite radio station is, but hey, go ahead, man, put it on your favorite radio station. He said, I don't know if you bothered looking up, but this truck has a panoramic sunroof. Go ahead and put the sunroof back. He says, listen, I'm going to go ahead and drive the car off the lot, but once I do that, you get in and we'll drive. Now he gets the guy guy in the car. They drive around the block. He says, hey, listen, man, we're real close to the dealership. We know all the police officers around here. You can go ahead and gun it. I want you to feel the power. And now the guy's in the car, and he guns it, he floors it, and my wife is over there like, Andy, you know this all too well, right? And now he's driving, and he has this feeling. He's in a truck, he's sitting up high. Somebody else pulls up to him, he's feeling good because he's up real high. And now he gets back over to the dealership. And the guy goes, hey, you want to come inside? We can run some numbers? And he says, no, I don't want to run any numbers. He says, I don't have any money right now. I don't want to buy a car. He said, well, if you were to buy a car, what kind of payments could you afford? And he said, I don't know, maybe $600, $700. He said, oh, really? I think I can make that work. Let's go inside. I just want to run some numbers for you. Next thing you know, he's got him in the room. He's running some numbers. And now the guy has walked out and he has bought and purchased a vehicle. Now he's made it to the block in which he lives, and he remembers the conversation that he had with his wife. And his wife said that you are not to make any big purchase items without first consulting me. And now he's driving around the block over and over again, and he's trying to figure out, how am I going to pull up in the driveway, and what's the story that I'm going to share with my wife? And he goes, wait a second, I got it. He says, I got the story. Honey, you're pregnant. We got a baby on the way. We're going to need more room. That's the reason why I bought the truck. Now, is that really the reason why he bought the truck? No. Why did he buy the truck? The feeling. And so the car salesman knows that if they can get you to touch those keys, if they can get you in the car, if they can get you to start driving, then they can go ahead and get a feeling out of you. And if they can trigger the emotion, the likelihood of them actually closing a sale actually increases significantly. Does that make sense? Yes or yes? And guess what? Your donors have feelings. You understand that? Yes or yes? The people that you want to be volunteers and contributors and advocates, guess what? They have feelings. Does that make sense? Yes or yes? And so we want to be very intentional about knowing in advance what is the feeling that we're hoping that we're actually going to trigger in them so we can get them to move forward and take action. Does that make sense? Yes or yes? Does that make sense? Yes or yes? I want everybody to do the feeling part with me one more time because I need to register. We need them to get the feeling, right? Excellent. And so it's so very important. Don't leave that out of that. So when you're trying to figure out what story you're going to share, you need to be thinking about what is the feeling that I'm looking to trigger? What's the feeling in them that I want them to actually have? Now, finally, here's what's very important. When we're talking about storytelling, we are not just talking about getting around. We don't do much of this in South Florida, but I know some of you traveled in. We're not talking about getting around a little fire pit and getting marshmallows and getting some chocolate and creating s'mores and telling some great stories. No. You're a nonprofit. You're a businessman and businesswomen. And so we're talking about strategic storytelling. We're talking about telling stories, and at the end of the story, we're going to ask somebody to actually take some type of step, some type of action. In other words, we're going to tell the story, and after telling the story, we want this person to actually do what? We want them to stroke a check. Or after telling the story, we want this person to volunteer. After telling the story, we want the person to become an advocate. After telling the story, we want this person to go ahead and say, you know what, that is a phenomenal cause. What do I need to do? And so you need to be prepared to let them know what it is that you want them to do. Does that make sense? Yes or yes? And so when we share stories, we're not talking about just sharing stories for the sake of sharing stories. We're talking about making sure that it actually is going to require an action step. Does that make sense? Yes or yes? Yes. Get those paddles out, get them out. I love it. And let's keep the energy up. Are you with me? Yes or yes? Yes. I love it. And so here's something I want to give to all of you. This is my gift to you. And so I want you to do this right now because success rewards those who take immediate action. So here's what I want you to do. I'm going to walk you through this very, very quickly. I created a very, very quick video training that is going to discuss this next point that I'm going on. But I need to go through this fairly quickly, and so I want to give you this free video training. In addition to the free video training, you're going to get a 3-part workbook. And so here's what I want you to do right now. Pull out your cell phones right now, and where you would go ahead and put in the telephone number, you're going to put in 954-278-3701. Now, where you would normally tell the friend or the person, hey, how you doing, what's going on, you're going to type in story, just story. What are you going to type in? Story, that's it. So go ahead and do that right now. Now, right after you do that, you're going to receive another text, and the text message is going to say, hey, what's your email address? When you do this, just type in your email address. Don't say, hey, Andy, I see you up there, man. You're starting to sweat, buddy. You should tell your wife to go ahead and bring you a napkin or something. What I want you to just type in there is go ahead and actually type in just your email address. And the final step, here's what it's going to ask you for. In the final step, it's going to simply ask that you put in your first and last name. Just type in your first and your last name. And right after that, thank you so much, Mary. Right after that, you're going to receive a text with the link to this free training. I know somebody in here is technically savvy. I know somebody has followed these instructions. If you have it, I want you to go ahead and raise your hand once you get through those steps. Okay, perfect. So, what color is my truck? Oh, good question. Black. Okay, so perfect. So, 3 very simple steps. You're going to text the word story, and then you're going to get another text. You're going to put in your email address. You're going to get another text, put in your first and last name, and the following text is going to have the link. It's all going to come directly to your telephone. Does that make sense? Yes or yes? And so we got to keep going on. So here's what I want to share with you next. The other reason why it's so very important that you take the time to actually share and tell your stories is because stories allow you to do 3 very powerful things. And those 3 things that stories allow you to do is, number 1, stories allow you to distract. Everybody say it with me, distract. Say it with me, distract. And so why do we want to do that? The reason why is because the individuals that you're seeking to get their attention, those that you're hoping that are going to actually make a contribution to your cause, those individuals that you're hoping are going to open up your email, those individuals that you're hoping are going to see your social media posts, guess what? There's a lot of other people who are also trying to get their attention. Does that make sense? Yes or yes? Would you agree with that? Yes or yes? And so they are extremely distracted. And so the beautiful thing about stories is stories give you the ability to momentarily distract people and get them to focus in on you for just a moment so they can hear what it is that you have to share. You see, here's what I need you to understand. Descriptions of programs rarely get shared and go viral. Data and statistics, even though they serve their purpose, they rarely get shared and go viral. But let me tell you something. If somebody sees a great story and the story resonates with them, and we see this happening all the time on social media, what do people do when they see a story and it resonates with them? What do? They share it. And so we want to be able to equip ourselves so that we can actually get people to focus and listen in to what it is that we actually have to share. And the best way that you can do that is to momentarily distract them. And one of the best ways that you can actually do that is through a story. Does that make sense? Yes or yes? So my wife and I, we do quite a bit of traveling. And a lot of times when you're going through the airport, we see this all the time, you see people and they're normally just really focused on making it to the airplane, off the airplane, to the terminal, and you'll see people going through especially busy airports, they're pulling their luggage and they're just trying to get someplace. But every once in a while you're at the airport, there's some type of breaking news. There is some type of story. And so what you would notice is no matter how busy people are, or how focused they are in actually making it to their actual terminal, if there's a breaking story and everyone's huddling around an actual television screen, what do people do? They stop in their tracks, they pull up to the monitor, they see the huddled people, and what they say? What's the story here? What's the story? I got to catch my plane. What's the story? What's going on? And so stories have the ability that regardless of how busy you are, stories have the ability to distract you. You know there are times that you've sat down and you turn on the television screen and you said, you know what, I'm not gonna stay and watch this show. I'm not gonna watch this Lifetime movie because I know it's gonna have a pretty bad ending. And so you're sitting there and you start watching it, and next thing you know, 2 minutes has gone by, 5 minutes have gone by, and now you have given up a whole hour of your life for a very disappointing ending. And you're saying, well, how did I just sit through all that? What do you think happened? You got distracted, and how did they do that? They enrolled you in the story. Does that make sense? Yes or yes? And so stories have the ability to distract. Now, here's the other thing that stories have the ability to do. Stories have the capacity and the ability to actually dispute. And so think about this. There are many people that you're looking to influence, that you're hoping that they're going to go ahead and make a contribution, a donation to your organization, that you're hoping that they are actually going to come and volunteer. And you already know that they already have some objections. How many of you run into objections? Anybody out there, yes or yes? Oh, bring that up. Yes or yes? Yes, yes. Right? So sometimes people are going to tell you, no, I don't have the time. I don't have the money. No, I can't help you out with that. I made a contribution to another organization that's very similar to yours. And so what we can do is we can go ahead and think about what are some of the objections that they have, and we actually share a story. We share actual story that is going to allow us to actually dispute the objection that's already going on in their mind. Does that make sense? Yes or yes? Yes or yes? Excellent. And so the last thing is that I need you to understand is that when it comes to stories, stories have the ability to inspire. How many of you have ever heard a great story and it inspired you to do something different? Anybody out there? Yes or yes? Yes, yes. Has that ever happened to anybody out there? Yes or yes? And so what you need to understand is that stories have the ability to inspire people to act. It can inspire someone to join your cause. It can inspire someone to cut a check. It can inspire somebody to actually be an advocate. Does that make sense? Yes or yes? And so stories have the ability to do three things, and we're going to bring the energy up because I want to do something very special with you right now. Stories have the ability to do three things. They allow you to distract, dispute, and inspire. Let's get those clappers up. Get the clappers up. Get the clappers up. Get the clappers up. Get the clappers up. All right. Bring the energy up. Perfect. And are you with me? Yes or yes? Yes, yes. One more time. Are you with me? Yes or yes? Yes, yes. Excellent. And so here's what I want to share with you. All of you in your bag have a copy of my book. The name of my book is called Show Up for Your Life. 7 Principles to Living an Extraordinary Life. Everybody say it with me. Show up for your life. If you can, reach in your bag right now and pull out the book. Reach in your bag right now and pull out the book. Raise them up high, pull out the book right there. Show up for your life. Show up for your life. Raise those books up high. See if you got it. See if you got it. See if you got it. Everybody raise those books up high. I love it. I love it. Show up for your life. Everybody say it with me. Show up for your life. One more time. Show up for your life. And one more time. Show up for your life. Now, this book, the foreword was written by my mentor, one of the world-renowned motivational speakers, German by the name of Les Brown. But this book was inspired by my mother. And so this entire book is really based off of and was inspired. One of the main principles, there's 7 principles, but one of the main key principles was inspired by my mother. You see, my mother came to the United States with less than $150 to her name. As a matter of fact, when my mom first came here to this country, one of the first jobs that she had, she worked down in Miami, Florida, making up the beds in some of the hotels that perhaps some of us have slept at. That's why till this day, when I sleep at different hotels, when I check out, I leave a tip because I understand that at one point, that was my mother that was in the room. One of the second jobs that my mother got, she actually got a job in a purse factory. And for 8 hours a day, my mom stood in the assembly line, and as the purses came down the assembly line, she reversed the purses and prepared them for stitching as they went down the assembly line. And after 22 years of being here in this country and having this desire to become an entrepreneur, my mom finally got her golden opportunity. She was just a little bit north of here in Delray Beach, Florida. And she was driving down Atlantic Avenue, and she saw a freestanding building with a for rent sign. And so my mom decided to rent out the building and open up a Haitian restaurant. And let me just tell you, if you've never had Haitian food, you better make sure you go out there and try, right? That is some good stuff. Everybody say it with me. This is Creole for saying that something is good. Say, bon bagay. Yes, yes. Haitian food is bon bagay. Say it one more time. Right, so she opens up this restaurant. And now she's been in business now for about 2 years, and things are beginning to look pretty good. And she's really excited. And so one day, it's a Saturday, she's at home, she's relaxing, she's minding her own business, and then she gets a knock on the door. The gentleman knocks on the door, and when my mom opens up the door, the gentleman says, "Are you Marie Henriquez?" She says, "Yeah," and he hands her some legal documents. My mom takes the legal documents and she starts flipping through. And what she realizes is that the property is going into foreclosure. And she can't believe this because she's been paying the landlord every single month consistently. And so my mom's devastated because she's thinking to herself, that this is how I take care of my 2 boys. At the time, that's how she takes care of me and my brother Ralph. And so out of the act of desperation, my mom noticed that there was a telephone number at the bottom of the paperwork. And so my mom decides to put in a phone call. Now, my mom has a pretty strong accent, and my mom calls them up, and she goes, "Hello? Hello, oui, this is Marie. Yes, I received the papers in the mail. It says that the property is going to foreclosure. But I don't understand because I pay the landlord every month. I pay him on time." And so the lady who's on the phone, she could hear the stress in my mom's voice. And she goes, "Oh, Marie. She says, listen, even though you've been paying the landlord rent every single month on time, the landlord has a mortgage. The mortgage is attached to the property, and because of that, the bank has the right to foreclose." My mom's like, "I don't understand." And so my mom's thinking she's about to lose her dream. And so my mom comes up with an idea. She says, "You know what? At a minimum, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to drive to this foreclosure sale, and I'm going to see if I can convince whatever big-time real estate investor, if there's any way that I can continue to stay in this property. I'll pay them the rent. I'll go up by $100, $200, anything to be able to stay in the property." And so 2 weeks later, my mom drives up to Palm Beach County to go to this foreclosure sale. And to her surprise, when she gets there, there's only 2 people there. There's this woman who is there, and she is literally the actual auctioneer, and she's a representative from the bank who's sitting there. This lady's there with the clipboard. And then there's another gentleman there. He's the auctioneer. And so before my mom could make out exactly what's about to take place, the auctioneer steps up to the podium and goes, "Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to start the bidding process on 540 West Atlantic Avenue. If you're here to bid on the property, please raise your hand." And so the representative from the bank is standing over here, and naturally, she raises her hand. My mom, caught up in the excitement, she's not quite sure how this thing happens. My mom took an act of faith, and she raised her hand. You see, Martin Luther King said that faith is taking the first step even when you can't see the entire staircase. The auctioneer says, "Very well, we're going to start the bidding process at $30,000. Can I get a $30,000? The representative from the bank is over here. She goes, $30,000. My mom, caught up in the excitement, has no money. My mom, accent and all, goes, $35,000. It gets back over here to the bank representative. Bank rep says, $36,000. Comes back over here. My mom's a fast learner. She realized she jumped up too high. She goes, $37,000. This goes on and on and on. Finally, it gets over here to the bank representative. Bank rep says, $74,000. My mom, calm, collect, accent and all, still in the game, has no money, $75,000. Gets back over here to the bank representative. Bank rep says, $76,000. Now, my mom's starting to get a little attitude. And the reason being, she's like, "I don't have this money anyway. I didn't show up here to bid on any property." And so my mom, attitude and all, strong accent and all, my mom goes, $76,500. But this time, something happens. The lady who's the representative from the bank is standing here with her clipboard. She looks, and apparently she's hit her number. And she says nothing. The auctioneer's got to keep the process going, and so he gets back to the podium, and he goes, $76,500 going once, no answer. He goes, 76,500 going twice? No answer. He goes, 76,500 sold to who? My mother, the woman who was willing to show up. The woman who, yes, you can clap for that. The woman who came here with less than $150 to her name. The woman who barely understood how the process is, and the woman who didn't have the money. And so at that time, they gave you 30 days to come up with the money. And so you want to talk about fundraising. Guess what my mom did? She went home, she pulled out a notepad, she wrote down every single family member, every friend that she could think of, and she started making phone calls and doing what? Telling them her story, one after another after another. And some said no. Some said, I'll lend you 500. Some said, I'll lend you 1,000. Some said, I'll lend you 2,000. One even said, I'll lend you 5,000. But my mom is now 3 days out, and she's still $30,000 short. And so my mom's thinking to herself, I did everything I could do. And she's like, everything that I've had, I put into that property. Maybe it wasn't meant to be. My mom's sitting at home, and her telephone rings. She gets a phone call from her friend, Yvonne. Yvonne said, Marie, my mom says, Yvonne, don't worry, it's too late. I'm 3 days away, and I still need $30,000. Up until that point, no one had lent her more than $5,000. Yvonne said, how much do you need? My mom said, $30,000, Yvonne. Yvonne said, me and my husband, we've been saving up money to buy a house. And at this point, we've saved up exactly $30,000. I spoke to him already, and he told me whatever it is that you need, we're just going to lend it. If you're telling me you need $30,000, we're going to lend you the $30,000. Yvonne said, I'm going to come over and I'm going to bring you a check. Yvonne drove over to my mom and brought her the check. My mom would take all the other checks that she collected, all that she had, and she would take all those checks and dash over to the bank. She would get one cashier's check and drive up to Palm Beach, Florida. She would go up to that thick glass and look at the teller right across and stick that check underneath. And that day, my mom went from being the tenant to being the landlord. All because, yes. All because she was willing to show up. You see, the woman who came here with less than $150 to her name, several years back, she got offered over $1.2 million for that property. She looked at the offer, handed it back, and said, no, thank you. I'm doing okay now. You see, that woman's life completely shifted because she was willing to show up in spite of the circumstances, in spite of the things that are going on through her mind. And here's what I could say to you. I know that you have a cause right now that you're passionate about. And I know that there are times that you could feel frustrated. I know there are times that you're going out and you're knocking on doors and you're making phone calls, and it feels like people just keep saying no and no and no. And sometimes you got a big heart, a big dream, a big cause, but you got a small bank account. And sometimes you just ask yourself the question, why should I just keep going? And what I'm saying is, in those moments when you're feeling difficulty, in those moments when you're feeling the struggle, you got to remember to always show up. You got to show up for your lives, ladies and gentlemen, because if you don't show up for your cause, if you don't show up for your purpose, if you don't show up for why you've been put here on this earth, nobody else will. I want you to give somebody a high five right now and say, show up for your life. Yes. And And so I want to use this. I want to use this as a learning opportunity. I don't get an opportunity to do this when I'm doing a regular keynote, but this is also about learning. Is that okay? Yes or yes, if I show you something real quick. So I want you to look here. Stories give you the ability to distract. It's late in the day. You've had a full day here. You ate food. There's a lot of things going on. You think about what's going back on in the office. You think about what's going on later. Some of you are getting tired. You're getting fatigued. And so what happens is, how many of you, once I got started telling you the story, that you were momentarily distracted? Raise your hands up high. Yes or yes? Yes, right? And so stories have the ability to distract. And then the other thing is, stories have the ability to dispute. The reason why I share that story is because when I get an opportunity to go in front of different audiences, I know that there are people in the audience who are saying to themselves, I don't have the resources. I don't know if I can do this. And so I share a story about a woman who came here with less than $150 to her name. A woman who at one point, her and my grandma, they were sleeping outside in a little foyer area. At times when it rained, they didn't have any place to go for covering, so they would get up and they would just sort of stand up and hover and wait till the rain went away. A woman who till this day, even though she speaks perfect English, when you're talking about money, she'll tell you she doesn't speak very good English, okay? That woman was able to come to this country and realize the American dream. So I share that with the audience to tell them, what's your excuse? So I'm disputing the conversation that's already going on in their mind. Does that make sense? Yes or yes? And then finally, I share the story so I can inspire them to show up. So when they get at that point in their life where they're feeling tired, they're feeling fatigued, and they're trying to figure out, should I go to the conference or I not? Should I go meet with this potential donor or should I not? Should I go ahead and make this other phone call or not? Or should I not? They'll remember, wait a second, I was at the weekend in Boca over at my Office Depot Foundation. There's a guy up on the stage. His name was Andy Henriquez. He told me I got to show up for my life. I heard the story about his mom. I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to do this, but I'm going to get up and I'm going to show up anyway. Does that make sense? Yes or yes? Yes. And so here's what I need you to understand. Every single one of you in here has a compelling and powerful story. You have a powerful story about what's taking place right now in your organization. You have a story as to why you decided to start your nonprofit if you were there at the inception. You have a story as to why you decided to join a nonprofit organization if you believe in their cause. You have a story about the people that you are impacting their lives. The story about the young girl that perhaps was taken away and brought back. You have the story about the wounded veteran that you handed keys to a brand new truck. You have the story about the young child that you helped go to college. You have those stories about the person that you empowered to be able to start their own business. And so it's story after story after story. It is my goal today before you leave. One of my mentors taught me this, that how you do anything is how you do everything. And so what it means is that if you don't play full out here while you're here at the weekend in Boca, chances are when you leave here and you get out these doors, you're going to be afraid to share your story. So before you leave here today, I'm going to ask you, if you would, go ahead and play full out with me and participate in my story challenge. Can I get you to do that? Yes or yes? Yes, yes. And so here's what I want you to do. I'm going to give you about 5 quick minutes, and here's what I want you to do. I want you to start jotting down the notes very quickly. I need 100% participation in order for this to work. Are you with me on this? Yes or yes? Okay? I want you to start jotting down a couple of quick notes on a story, one story that best exemplifies the impact that your organization makes in the lives of other people. Now, I want you to think of one specific story. How many stories? One story. And so I want you to start jotting down the notes. Maybe it was the one person that you helped, that one young lady that you helped go to college. Maybe it was that one little child that gave you a hug when you handed them over that book bag. Maybe it's that one little story of that veteran that everybody counted out that you were able to make a personal connection and help them to get housing. I want you to think of one story. If you're not a part of a nonprofit, then apply this to your for-profit organization. I want you to think of just one story, and I want you to start jotting down the notes. Can you do that for me? Yes or yes? So that is your first step. Now, I just want to make sure that everybody's with me. So I'm going to ask you one more time. Are you with me? Yes or yes? Yes, yes. Perfect. So I'm going to give you about 4 minutes. Everybody jot down a couple of notes about your story while you're right here in this moment. Think of that one story. Okay, excellent. Has everybody written down some notes about your story? Yes or yes? Yes or yes? All right, excellent. Now, here's what I want you to do. I'm going to give you 2 more minutes to do this. Don't make it more complicated than it need to be. You are a natural-born storyteller, but all I want you to do is, as you look at this story that you have written down, the notes you jot down, I want you to think for a moment. When you share this story with somebody, what is it that you want them to know? What's the reason why you're sharing this story? One of the things that I teach my clients is you never share a story without making a point, and you never make a point without sharing a story. And so hopefully there's something specifically that you would like people to know as a result of you sharing this actual story. Does that make sense? Yes or yes? The other thing is that I want you to think about is what is it that you want them to feel? Now, understand, this may not be a tearjerker, but just think about it for a moment. Is there anything particular that you want them to feel? Do you want them to feel excited? Do you want them to feel sympathy? Do you want them to feel as if like, wow, this is something really, really amazing, really awesome? And then finally, what do you want them to do? And so here's a potential phrase. At the end of your story, you can potentially say this, and that is why I would love for you, write this down, and that is why I would love for you, and fill in the blank. And that is why I would love for you to join our board. And that is why I would love for you to become one of our donors. And that is why I would love for you to become one of our sponsors. And that is why I would love for you to become one of our volunteers. Does that make sense? Yes or yes? So just spend 2 more minutes just thinking about these 3 things as they apply to your story. You're doing absolutely amazing. Trust me, we're going to end this where the energy is through the roof. You're going to get an opportunity to share your stories. So just think about this for a moment. All of us have tremendous stories, and all of us have the ability to be able to share stories that have the ability to connect with people, to influence people. I could witness from up here people, as they were sharing their stories, who were actually moved in a matter of just 2 minutes. So one of the things that I want you to realize is you don't need a whole lot of time to be able to share a compelling story. The other thing is, understand this, that there will be times when I do these exercises that there are some people who they run out of time. And if you find yourself running out of time, what it means is that when it comes to storytelling, you need to be a little more intentional in deciding what's important and what it is that you need to actually take out. That's a part of storytelling. Understanding what details you can leave out and what details are very important. Does that make sense? Yes or yes? The other thing is that you'll discover is as you continue to practice, normally in my full day trainings, when I'm going and doing trainings for nonprofit organizations or I'm working with other speakers and so forth, we do this exercise more than once. And what you'll determine, what you actually realize is as this exercise goes on, that you start to gain even more confidence and that all of a sudden now you get really better at sharing and telling your stories. So what it tells us is that we've got to take the time to actually share our stories. Here's the other thing that you need to understand. I want you to write this down. The best speakers make the fewest words go the furthest. The best speakers make the fewest words go the furthest. And so just because you're saying a whole lot more doesn't necessarily mean that you're making more impact. And so what we want to do is we want to be very decisive with our words, and we want to be very intentional with our words so that we make sure that our words actually make an impact. Does that make sense? Yes or yes? And so before we close out, I want you to realize there's 2 microphones here. There's one microphone there, and there's another microphone right over there. And here's what I want you to do. Coming off of this little 2-minute storytelling exercise, and you're going to get 1 minute to do this, and let's respect the time because we're wrapping up. I want you to go ahead, if you have something that you want to share, and I want you to look at these 3 questions. And I want you to just think for a moment, just from this little quick exercise and from this time that I shared with you, I want you to go ahead and just share, what is it that you learned, or what did you discover, or what surprised you during this exercise? So you did the 2-minute exercise. Maybe you learned, oh my gosh, I could tell the story in 2 minutes. But I want you to go to one of the microphones and just go ahead and share your name, and real quickly tell me, what did you learn? What did you discover? What surprised you? You do not have to answer all 3 questions. You can just choose to answer one. But I want to do this so that we can open up the floor and I can hear from all of you, because it's very important to me that all of you decide to leave here and begin to start sharing and telling your stories. So go ahead. I believe the microphones are hot. So you can go in and you can say your name and just real quickly, what did you learn? What did you discover? What surprised you? And you can choose to just share one thing if you want. Yes.
Oh, good afternoon. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Parisa, and what I learned is that I'm really shy to share the story, to share the personal. I'm not shy about speaking in general, but sharing the actual stories of why.
So excellent. So anybody else out there find themselves a little nervous, a little scared, a little shy sometimes. And so how do you think we get past that? The way we get past that is that in spite of feeling fearful and in spite of feeling a little shy and nervous, that you actually do it anyway. There's a woman by the name of Joyce Meyer. She has a book. It's called Do It Afraid. And so if you can condition yourself to start sharing and telling your stories, even if you're just talking to friends, and let me tell you something, believe it or not, you share and tell stories all the time. Someone's gonna ask you, how was today? And you're gonna tell them a story. Over the weekend, you're gonna go someplace and you're gonna go eat, or you're gonna go to a movie, or you're gonna do something. They're gonna say, well, how was the movie? How was the food? And you're gonna share and tell a story. And so all you have to do is be intentional when it comes to your organization and your cause of actually sharing and telling the stories. Let's give her a round of applause. Let's give her a round of applause. Excellent, excellent. Yes.
Thank you. There are 2 points that you made, which is disrupt, get the person's attention, and in the end, tell them how your idea, your project can help them do what they want to do better. The first part about get their attention occurred to me for something I've never thought of before, an opening line that said, Martin Luther King had a dream and he made it happen. 5 years ago, I had a dream, literally had a dream. I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning and I've made that dream come true. And that dream is to enable kids with homes to help kids without by an arts and crafts project that they collect and donate money to any homeless charity of their choice. Are you involved with teaching kids values and having them make a difference? And if so, we should talk more. The project's called Houses of Change. Anybody wants to see me after, and I'll talk to you about how you can use this for your organization. But thank you.
Give me your first name.
Mark Wasserman, Mark.
Mark, excellent. So Mark shared a powerful point that stories allow us to distract. They allow us to dispute, and they allow us to inspire. And the challenge that I would even give you, Mark, is even in that soundbite, you did a tremendous job of letting us know what your organization does. But what we want to do is, instead of giving the general umbrella story, we want to start honing it in to the one individual story that someone can relate to. So you have all these children that you're impacting, Mark. One of the challenges that I have for you as you leave here, not to say you're not already doing this, but think about that one child who may perhaps was having a challenge, that child all of a sudden came in through your program, and the different approach that you took actually was able to transform their lives. Because we can be so much more effective when instead of just giving the general story, if we hone into that one specific story. If you notice in the exercise, I wanted you to focus on how many stories? One. Because I want you to start conditioning yourself to trying to figure out what's the one powerful story that you can share that's going to allow you to make a significant impact. Does that make sense? Yes or yes? Yes. Let's give him a round of applause. Excellent, excellent. Yes, sir.
And awesome presentation.
Thank you.
But you just made my job a little more difficult.
Okay.
All right. Generally, I was told, tell a story that is different from anybody else's. Sell a product that is different from everybody else's, so that you have the unique product, you have the unique story. Everybody has a story. So, and I have hundreds of stories, which is probably one of my problems, because you asked me what my story is, and I'm like, where do I start? So that's what just happened to me before. Where do I start? So thank you. You did give me something to think about, and I learned something today.
Excellent, excellent. So let me share this point with you. That was excellent. Can I get your first name? Peter. So Peter brought up a wonderful point, but here's something I want you to realize. A lot of times people are trying to find out what's that one unique story. But truth be told, what you're looking for is stories that perhaps have a universal theme. Those are the stories that are the most powerful, stories that people can relate to. What if you have a tremendously unique story that no one can relate to? And so if you think about it, I want to rewind. I want you to be learning throughout this whole presentation. When I opened up, I shared my story. how I started off just following the path that my parents prescribed to me. Well-intended, they meant the best for me. They said, Andy, go to school, get a good education, get a good job. I went on and I got a degree in accounting. I got my master's degree. I got my CPA license. I landed a job at one of the largest professional service firms in the world. Now, how many people in here are CPAs and accountants? Look, we got a couple in the room. But all the other people, none of that necessarily relates to you. So what do? I have to find the universal theme in the story. Where I tied in the universal theme in the story is when I say, but now I'm working with this company for 3 years, and I'm realizing that my life is starting to follow a basic routine. I'm waking up every day to the sound of an alarm clock, jumping out of my bed into my car, fighting traffic to get to a place in which I knew that something was saying, Andy, there's gotta be more than this. And then I asked the audience, how many of you have ever been at a place in your life where you said, there's got to be more than this? Now raise your hands if you've ever been at that place. Now look around the room. Now look around the room. So what you are looking for in your story is the universal theme. You're looking for the thing that people can relate to. If you have a unique story, but no one can relate to it, you can't influence people. You want to find out by being interested, as opposed to being interesting, what's important to that person, and find a way to tie your story to something that's of interest to them. And Peter, when you were saying, well, what story do I share? That's why I gave you the 3 questions. What do I want them to know? What do I want them to feel? And what do I want them to do? So when you're saying, what story do I share? What story do I share? Well, wait a second. Calm down. Who are you talking to? What do you want them to know? Okay, this person, I want them to know this particular thing about an organization. What's a story that I can share that will help them to know that? Does that make sense? Yes or yes? Yes. Did that make sense? Yes or yes? Yes. Excellent. Let's give him a round of applause. Excellent. Yes.
My name is Angie Moss, and telling my story in this exercise made me realize I'm a great storyteller. However, I wasn't asking for what I need at the end. So when I finished and I was speaking with the young lady, number 1, and she says, you can have it all if I had it. I was like, oh, I could have it all if I would have just asked.
Yes.
I've been on this journey for 2 years, going around telling that story. And I wasn't asking for anything, just giving it. So now I realize with this exercise that I can ask. I can ask for donations. I can ask for sponsorship. I can ask you to volunteer. So now I feel very complete right now. Thank you.
Absolutely. Excellent. Give me your first name.
Excuse me?
First name.
Ann Jean.
Ann Jean. So Ann Jean brought up a powerful point. I mean, many of you you would think, because we're in an environment where it's mostly people who are nonprofit, everybody knows this, but one of the things that we forget to do is we forget to ask, right? And so you'll think about it, say, ask and it'll be given to you. Seek and you shall find. Knock and the door will be open unto you, right? And so you've got to remember to ask. And so that's why we say you got to be very intentional. We're not just talking about telling stories, but we're talking about strategic storytelling, that we're hoping for a specific action. We want people to take a step. If you notice, when I was standing up here, I was very intentional that I wanted to provide you with a gift. And so I know, well, what do most people do when they see something like this come up? They write it down and they never do it. And so one of the things I said, pull out your cell phones right now. My wife told me that, hundreds of you already did it, but there's quite a few of you were fumbling through your phone, you were trying to figure it out, but I was intentional about the ask. I said, pull out your cell phone. Type in the number 954-278-3701. In the place where you would tell the person hi, if you still haven't done it, I'm still asking you to do it, put the word story in there. Afterwards, you're gonna get a response. It's gonna ask for your email, put your email. Do you understand? I'm being very intentional with the ask. Does that make sense, yes or yes? Do you know how many other people would just tell you, hey, you can text something, and then they're just gonna go on? How many people in the room are gonna actually do it? It's gonna be less than 2% would do it. If you want people to do something, you have to be very intentional and make the ask at that moment, specifically if you're sharing a story. Does that make sense, yes or yes? Yes. Let's give Ann Jean a round of applause. Excellent, yes.
Hi, my name's Monica.
Hey, Monica.
Hello. What happened when I did my story is it actually surprised me about myself. One, that I thought that if I talk to people, I don't really like networking. So the idea of talking to someone about a sales pitch or getting donations distracts me a little bit. I get a little nervous. But telling a story just took that fear and that, oh God, I don't want to like sound like some pushy salesperson completely away. Because then you're thinking about the story and you getting wrapped up in the story too. So it just eases you so much. So that's what surprised me, that I wasn't nervous. And also that the story itself is what made me not so nervous. So
Excellent.
That was awesome.
So Monica brought up a wonderful point, and we're going to be wrapping up the questions because we're running out of time. I could take one more, but listen, here's what Monica is helping you to realize. That, you know what, you could be very anxious about, trying to be interesting and talking about your organization and listening to programs. But when Mary was up here, she was speaking, and one of the key things that she said is, you got to remember that it's not about who, it's not about you. And so one of the things that I tell people, they've got a little saying, they say, hey, it's not about you, boo, right? There's this little saying people say, and I want to remind you, when you're in a nonprofit and you're getting out, I want to remind you, it's not about you, boo-boo. Okay? It is about the people that you're making impact in their life. And so the reason why when people have an opportunity to speak, even in my profession, public speaking, they get so nervous. Why? Because when they come up here, they're thinking about, where are they going to think of me? What if I start sweating? What if I mess up a word? What if I do this? It's all about me, me, me. But if you come up here, I'm not saying you're not going to be nervous, but if you switch the focus off of you and put the focus on the people that you're looking to serve, all of a sudden now you're not thinking about yourself. So when you start sharing the stories about other people, you take the focus off of you and you put the focus on the cause. And it removes much of the anxiety. Does that make sense? Yes or yes? Let's give Monica another round of applause. Yes. One more question and then we're going to have to wrap it up. Yes.
Thank you, Andy. Can you all hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, fantastic. My name is Shani, and I want to answer two of the questions that you had on the thing. What did I discover? I discovered Hepzibah House, which is a nonprofit that's in Palm Springs, Florida. And in hearing about where they were and their mission to help women through human trafficking, the first thing I asked was, did you talk to Andy? I asked Lorraine, did you talk to Andy? So I discovered that I wasn't even thinking about myself or my organization or anything like that. I was thinking about how could I help Lorraine. The second thing I discovered was that I could take a change and shift in what I was going to say. I had notes written for a completely different story to share with her, but I kept feeling like I need to share something else. So instead, I told her about my organization's artisan program and what we do with that and teaching our adults how to do mosaics. And in telling her where we sell the item, she said, hey, we sell stuff there too. So in going completely off course, it ended up giving us something to bond over, which I don't know if that would have happened if I had gone with my initial story.
Excellent.
So,
Give me your first name.
Shani.
Shani. Let's give Shani a round of applause. And so I'm going to pivot off of what Shani said, and we're going to end this time together. Shani said, I was going to say something, and then I said, I've got to say something else. Write this down. Never allow what you want to say to get in the way of what the person needs to hear. Write that down. Never allow what you want to say to get in the way of what the person needs to hear. You need to make sure that you're listening to your intuition. Sometimes you have it in your head exactly what it is that you want to share, but then you realize that perhaps that there's someplace else that you need to take the conversation. And you need to be able to and willing to risk it and share another story. Does that make sense? Yes or yes? Yes or yes? And so we are about to end, but I need to bring this energy back up. So first of all, I want to ask you one more time, are you with me? Yes or yes? Yes, yes. And so here's what I want to remind you. Every single one of you in here has a compelling cause. You have a compelling story. And understand, when you open your mouth and you're getting in front of a donor, a potential supporter, they're asking three questions. They're asking, who are you? What do you have? Why should I care? You need to be prepared to answer those questions. And then when you find yourself in a situation where you're going to sit across from a potential donor or someone that you're able to enroll into your nonprofit organization, you need to be intentional about being interested as opposed to interesting. Are you with me on that? Yes or yes? And when you're trying to figure out, well, what am I going to come up with? What story am I going to share? You got to remember and ask yourself the question, what do I want them to know? What do I want them to feel? And what do I want them to do? Do you hear me on that? Yes or yes? And the powerful thing about stories, as I shared my mother's story with you, is stories allow you to distract, they allow you to dispute, and they allow you to inspire. Listen carefully, Office Depot Foundation, and everyone who is here for the Weekend in Boca event. Every single one of you has a tremendous cause. You're making impact. You are changing lives. And I'm telling you, you can elevate the game. You can take it to a next level, not by just making your website better, not by coming up with a better description for all of your programs, not by just continuing to make random posts and send out emails, but if you just go back to this old skill that all of us have of just simply sharing and telling your story. The shortest distance between you and the person that you're looking to impact, the shortest distance between you and your next donor, the shortest distance between you and every person that you're looking to enroll into your organization is a well-told story. So get out there and tell your stories. My name's Andy Henriquez, and it's been an absolute pleasure to be with you today.